is abundance, trauma, everything in between, everything around it, but of course, helping people work through it. So do me a favor, introduce yourself, tell my audience a little bit about who you are, and of course, where they can find you.
Yeah, so my name is Tori Jenae, and I live in Los Angeles, more specifically Beverly Hills, California. I have 3 degrees in psychology now and a multitude of different qualifications. And the reason I start with that is because where I am now and the life that I've built, you would never have guessed from where I started. And I was actually conceived in a heroin rehab facility. My mom had addiction issues our whole life. So we were on welfare or, counselor state kid, like lots of different challenges throughout life. So I grew up with both parents being having addiction issues and a lot of struggles. Over the last 11 years, I've gotten divorced. I lost my mom, my sister to drug related issues. My sister overdosed. My grandmother, my dog, like you name it, I've lost my health, my my wealth. There's not many challenges I haven't been through. And I really share that because I think we don't talk about these things enough, first and foremost. And secondarily, while I do have a lot of the fancy qualifications, I've walked the fire and I've had grief that cracks your soul open and I've had trauma that can break you. And so I just want to let your listeners know right up front that I don't speak of this because I read it in a book. I speak of it because I've lived it, I've healed it, and I've spent 26 years becoming the expert that I am today.
So, Tori, let me ask you then, when you share a story like that and you reflect on everything that you've gone through, what are some of the obstacles that you went through back then that you look back and you're like, you know what? These are defining moments in my life.
Oh gosh, like a big one was when I was 17 and I knew that my home wasn't really conducive to me being educated. It was just too stressful. So I left at 17 years old and I've been on my own pretty much ever since. Like, I had a spouse, but I never had parental support from the time I was 17. I actually supported my parents at times or gave money to my younger brother, helped raise him. So that was a very pivotal moment, a big change in my life. And the other one was when I was in my early 20s and having my mom, my dad, my stepdad, so many people in my life, my older sister, all struggle with addiction. I decided at like 22 that I wasn't going to drink anymore. Like I was like, okay, I've tried this. I'm really bad at it. and I was like, and for me, like I didn't know this at the time, but that was me breaking the cycle of addiction in my family. And thank God my younger brother now is also sober and we've completely changed the trajectory of our family and I completely changed the trajectory of my life by leaving home, becoming independent, financially independent, which we'll talk about abundance because I've come from the bottom and now I'm here. So I have a real story of that. And also just really like all these moments through my life, even though we have these painful things that we think it's going to break us down, those are really the moments that we have to break through. And we always have the moment to make that choice to stand up one more time when we've gotten knocked down. And I mean, there's a million pivotal moments, but I know that those are two that changed the trajectory of my life was leaving home early, dedicating myself to getting my education. And here in the United States, it's very expensive to be educated. And I also paid for all of my education myself. I never took out a loan. I worked full time and put myself through school.
I know for me, one of my proudest moments, similar to you, was when I left home because I just had to escape it. I was like, you know what? I can't grow in this household. And I look back all those years, and I was young. I think it sounds like we were around the same age when we left. It was hard. It was painful. Some days I was like, Terrain, what the hell did you just do? Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But then I would look back in my bedroom at the time in that single bedroom apartment, and I was like, you know what? Every time I go to bed, I have peace.
Mm.
I have happiness. When you reflect on that, how important of a decision was that for you to leave, knowing that maybe it's going to be difficult, but in the long run, it was a better choice for you?
Yeah, it felt like it was almost like life or death in some ways. It was like I knew if I didn't get out, I wasn't going to make it. And it was like everything in me knew that no matter what I had to do, I was going to make it happen by leaving. And so, yeah, it was painful because I also worried about, is my mom going to be okay? that was another concern is I'd always kind of helped her. So there was that what I call inner conflict between do I save myself here or do I, put I love the saying, do I set myself on fire to keep someone else warm?
Like a little bit of sometimes you have like survivor's guilt where you're succeeding, you're surviving, and someone else is suffering or someone else may not be as successful. And when you're working with some of the men and women that you work with, do they sometimes pull back from progress because they're looking at it as, what about my mom? What about my dad? What about my family members? What about my relationships? Is that a struggle for some people to accept and understand?
Yeah, I think that's such a good question because so many people don't understand that there's a part of us that doesn't want to be left behind. There's a part of us that doesn't want to disconnect from our tribe, which is our family. And when we heal and we move out of the old ways in which we were taught to be, even with addiction in my family and me going to school, like that wasn't something that my family was excited about. I actually heard things like, "Oh, you think you're too good for us now." And like that made me, in Australia, they call it tall poppy syndrome. When we start growing, the people around us actually want to cut us down to size. And so that can be an inner conflict of guilt of leaving people behind. I even had this when I was about 30, I was working in corporate and I made, like six figures and I would give a lot of my money away to my family because I felt so guilty. Like I'm I'm okay and they're struggling. And it's like allowing someone to have their choice and recognize again that you have to put your oxygen mask on first and work through that guilt and realize that 99% of the time that's codependency speaking. And codependency is really if you're okay, then I'm okay. And it's very typical in any situation where there's mental health issues, drug addiction, alcoholism. Like we don't even know it because we're just raised in that environment. It's like breathing. Like I didn't know how to connect with someone if they didn't need me to take care of them. Like,
That sounds like someone I used to date where she was trying to fix every single person at her own detriment. And it got to the point where it is exhausting, right?
yes.
Because you're around this person who seems to have time for everyone else, but not themselves, right? And then they get upset because they're like, oh, there's not enough time for me. I can't do this, I can't do that. And if they're in a relationship, it takes away from their relationship because maybe they're not focusing on themselves as well as their partner. And one thing I wanted to ask you, and I shared this offline before we spoke, was abundance, right?
Hmm.
Like you hear that a lot in relationships or between two people. What does that mean from a perspective of a relationship when someone says that, you need to manifest abundance. So what does abundance mean, not only to the person in a relationship, but the partner that they have?
Yeah, I mean, I think abundance, we primarily think of money, and that is a big part of it. But I really see abundance as joy, love, success. It's excess. And so many of us just don't allow ourselves to have any excess. We get stuck in either not enough or just enough. But when's the last time someone felt like they had an excess of joy or love or peace or ease? And so when I talk about abundance, I always say like living in alignment with your truth is abundance. Having your financial, spiritual, emotional needs met is abundance. So manifesting is really my conscious choice to create something in my life. And like you were saying, that means also making a difficult choice to maybe stop focusing on everyone else around me and recognize that, like, if I want to be abundant, I have to have more than enough. My cup has to runneth over. And then I'm in a place to take care of people. Like, I love to even think of like with parents, like, if you don't have the energy or the resources, you can't bleed yourself dry to give to your children. You want to have something to give to them. Same thing with your partner. You want to be able to be in such a good place working on your own health, happiness, wealth, wellness that you have something to give that person. A lot of us, we always think about what we can receive in love relationships. And I think of abundance as how can I fill myself up, have a good relationship with myself so that I can have a good relationship with other people. And we also have a relationship with money, and a lot of people don't know that. And I'm not like, I really focus on like trauma and relationships but I really work on the relationship with money as well because I grew up without it. So I know what it's like to not have it. And I also, because I am such an advocate of, people who grew up in the ways that I did, women, people of color, like all the people who grew up in a different, maybe we started a little bit behind the line. It's very important to me to help people understand how to heal their relationship with money and recognize the way that they earn, spend, and save can all be shifted and changed.
I struggled with that a little bit growing up, where my relationships with people and money was probably toxic.
It's all how we do anything is how we do everything.
Exactly, right. It wasn't like I was good here and toxic there. I was just
No.
toxic across the board. But I think looking back, I think the reason why I did that is maybe I was a little afraid of the change. I knew who I needed to become to obtain the type of lifestyle I wanted, but I knew that to do that, I would have to leave people behind,
Hmm.
right? And leaving people behind at that time meant that I would have to be alone, right? And you probably have seen this. For a lot of people, being alone is one of the worst things they could ever go through. So I delayed it and I delayed it. And as I was delaying the changes, I began to get hurt by some of
Hmm.
these people I was delaying the changes for. And then I remember one day I got my house that I'm living in now, and I was so excited, Tori, and I shared it with a couple of my friends. And then I'll never forget the one person turned around and said, "Why is that you can get a house and I can't?"
Ooh.
Not even, yeah, not even being happy.
Hmm.
That day was like when an addict hits rock bottom and they are forced to change. I remember that day as clear as day. That's when everything changed. I was like, you know what? I gotta, I gotta put some distance between myself and these people. Do you find that some people maybe wait too long to make the changes necessary to improve their relationship with money, with other people?
Yeah. I mean, all of us as humans, like pain is a powerful teacher. And so often the pain and the pressure has to be greater than the fear of the change or the fear of the loss. And just like you said, I believe, Oprah said it best. The universe will whisper, then she'll scream, and then she'll throw a brick in your face. And that's kind of how it happens to all of us. And like you said, the fear of being alone or losing our people, like that is hardwired into us. We are literally neurologically designed to connect with other people. So a long time ago, if we were exiled from the tribe, we would die. And that still lives within us. We have ancient nervous systems living in a modern world. And this is why it can be very hard to know that I need to make this change, that I need to let go of these people and be able to make that change. And so that's where doing the inner work really comes into play. And I know because I've had to do this personally. My mom, at the height of her addiction at one point, I didn't talk to her at all for a couple of years. And that was really hard because I worried that she would be okay. But also, I knew like there was no way I could heal myself and maintain that relationship with her. I always liken it to like if you have a really large wound and you keep putting salt in it and opening it back up, it's never going to heal. So sometimes we have to take space. Sometimes we can come back to old relationships and heal them. And sometimes their time has expired in our life. Like you're saying, like you have this amazing, you bought a home, which is such a big deal. And there were people who weren't happy for you because they were in their victim mindset, which is life is happy.